left channel, right channel, center.
ENVTuber 一問一答自己紹介
Yeah, and the tape's
それじゃあ
rolling.
行くよせーのお名前は
Katt Phloxworthy.
呼び方は
Just Cat is fine.
あなたは何系 VTuber?
Nerdy cat girl who features spaceflight.
誕生日は
May 4th.
年齢は
Older than Pneumatic.
性別は
Transgender
身
female.
長は
4'11".
出身は
Sacramento County.
チャームポイントは
Dialogue hair clip.
突然ですがモノマネどうぞ
Yeah, what's up, Dad?
活動場所は
Twitch, Twitter, YouTube.
はじめの挨拶
Thank you for joining me.
終わりの挨拶
Bye.
推しマークは
Not at present.
配信タグは
Catlight feed.
ファンアートは
Cat pics.
ファンネームは
Cat's apprentices.
好きな色は
Iris Indigo.
好きなことは
Vintage computers and
得
video.
意なことは
Technology.
ここで一言愛の告白好
I love you.
きな食べ物は
Ethnic foods.
好きな飲み物は
Craft soda.
好きな漫画は
Pizza 10.
好きなアニメは
Planet.
好きなゲームは
Left 4 Dead 2.
好きな音楽は
Classic rock.
苦手なことは
Human stupidity.
尊敬するのは
Space fairy people.
叶えたい夢は
ISS crew
最後にみんな
interview.
に一言どう
Thanks
ぞ
so much for your support and a final status check.
Go Atlas.
Go Centaur.
Go Katt Phlox.
You have permission to launch.
3, 2, 1. RD-180 ignition, booster ignition, and liftoff of Atlas V and Centaur. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me. Pardon me, Katt Phloxworthy here. How is everybody doing this evening? First of all, off stream, thank you so much for the follow. Ren Hiroshi, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to the workshop and labs. And so, anyway, we're about to head over to Launch Complex 39A over at the Kennedy Space Center, where they're getting ready to launch a Falcon 9 carrying a Cargo Dragon 2. Headed for for SpaceX's 31st resupply mission to the ISS. And basically, and hey, Red Blue Fire, how you doing? I hope you're having a great time where you are, whatever time it is of day it is. We're waiting on things to start up. So, in any event, that's coming up real soon. And of course, they were also talking. Also, apparently, they're getting ready to do the next Starship and Super Heavy launch, IFT-6, and apparently they're going for an orbital insertion this time. This should be interesting to say the least, because the main thing I was watching on another video, I watched a video last night that basically talked about they'd better do this right, because if they can't get it out of orbit, that vehicle is essentially orbiting out of control, and if it can't do a controlled re-entry like many Chinese boosters do, they're gonna find that thing, or huge chunks of it anyway, somewhere else on the planet, because we already saw what happened with one of the starships when it re-entered the atmosphere. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and join the coverage that just started, so stand by. So anyway, that's the Falcon 9. It is a two-stage vehicle, which has a fueled with RP1, or rocket propellant 1, which is a highly refined form of kerosene for the fuel, and liquid oxygen as the oxidizer. And it's on both stages, fueling 9 sea-level Merlin 1D engines at the base of the first stage, and 1 vacuum-optimized Merlin 1D at the base of the second stage. And then they're getting ready. They've already started the stage 2 RP1 load just before we came on, and they're about to start. And they just started the stage 2 liquid oxygen load, or LOX as they sometimes call it. Sometimes they even call it LO2 because it's a liquefied gas.
SpaceX Dragon will deliver about 3 tons of science supplies and equipment to the.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. The audios have been on the jittery side. Let me switch back over here real quick, and I'll restart the playback. I'll be doing this real quick, and let me do a reload. Okay, we're gonna. I think it's not gonna improve much, so we're just gonna go right back to it. We're inside of 18 minutes and counting. Basically, this is at Launch Complex 39A, which played host to many Apollo missions, as well as a good many space shuttle missions, including the very last one, STS-135, aboard Space Shuttle Atlantis. And very recently, they actually they did their first crewed launch out of Space Launch Complex 40, which is at nearby Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, or CCSFS, excuse me. And in what you'll see there is you can see a whole bunch of umbilicals connected to the capsule. Now, this looks, if you think that it looks a lot like Crew Dragon, that's because it's very much based on Crew Dragon. The very big difference between those two is that there's no launch escape system. That is to say, you don't see any of the Super Dracos around the circumference of the vehicle. Neither does it have one thing that you don't see, and that is a life support system. That doesn't mean that the vehicle isn't pressurized, because that entire volume, I believe, is pressurized. The only part that isn't pressurized is the trunk, which is at the base of the service module, which has the solar panels on it. Oop. Guess they have a
International Space Station flight control room at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, where our flight controllers.
So basically, what they do is they have several different places where they have essentially what amounts to different mission controls. They're at the Johnson Space Center at the ISS mission control. And I think the previous one was at Hawthorne, California, which is SpaceX's mission control. And then over in Florida, I don't know if they have anything in Florida for launch control there. They don't know if they have the firing room over there, but they know they have mission control in California, here in California. But I know for space shuttle launches, they had, and of course SLS, they had the firing room there. And then of course there's the actual mission control in Houston.
Don Pettit and Nick Hague are ready to welcome Dragon with its anticipated docking tomorrow morning. The crew is rested and ready to receive Dragon after witnessing the relocation of Crew 9's Dragon spacecraft.
Yeah, this is pretty jittery as far as the audio goes. I was not anticipating this, so I'll have to check to see how things going. I'm not sure if it's the YouTube feed that I'm getting or what's happening, but yeah, it's not looking real. It's good enough right now. At least we can see what's happening.
Vehicles involved in this mission. Yume?
As we continue to count down, let's take a closer look at the
We're back to Hawthorne.
CRS-31 to the space station today. Sitting atop the Falcon 9 rocket, Dragon in its trunk stand about 27 feet tall. Dragon has 16 Draco thrusters that can be used in space to help navigate the spacecraft to
And a few of them are under the dome that's up top.
Dragon's trunk attached below the spacecraft holds solar cells that power Dragon.
The nose cone, rather.
Pre-flight, and the trunk can also carry unpressurized cargo, which it will be doing today. About 50 seconds after separation, Dragon's nose cone deploy sequence will begin, exposing its guidance navigation controls that help Dragon autonomously fly to the space station. The nose cone also
And those little areas that you see there that are sort of scooped out, those are where the little Draco thrusters are, and they use a propellant mixture of monomethylhydrazine, or MMH, and dinitrogen tetroxide as the oxidizer, and those are what are called hypergolic propellants. Basically, the two components combust on contact with each other.
Under NASA's commercial resupply and commercial crew programs. This particular spacecraft has supported 4 previous commercial resupply missions for NASA, including CRS-21, 23, 25, and 28. and launching Dragon.
So basically what they're saying is this is the first stage and the Dragon are both reusable. The second stage presently is not. But once they do Starship and Super Heavy, the entire vehicle is reusable.
Powered by a single Merlin vacuum engine, or MVAC, which is optimized to perform in the
And that is, and they're talking about basically, they can put basically that is the most efficient hydrocarbon-based engine ever. The only way you can get any more than that is if you get gaseous ones, notably either liquid methane or more frequently liquid hydrogen. And of course, the RL-10 is probably the most, and the most efficient of them being the RL-10. Which is on the second stage of which is on the Centaur stage of Atlas Centaur. Oh yeah, it's getting really bad.
Into low Earth orbit before separating, leaving Dragon to continue its journey to the space station on its own thrusters.
I'm gonna pause this real quick. I'm gonna go back to there, and I'm going to pause the stream, and then I'm gonna restart it and see if it helps any. Yeah, I'm just gonna let this play normally. Unfortunately, that's the best we can do right now.
Before separating, leaving Dragon to continue its journey to the space station on its own thrusters. Just below the second stage is the first stage, which contains 8.
Yeah, the first stage is what gets it off the ground, and then the second stage is what gets it up to orbital velocity.
Dragon's entry into low Earth orbit before separating, leaving Dragon to continue its journey to the space station on its own thrusters. Just below the second stage is the first.
I'm gonna turn this down a little bit because
all held in place by a structure called the Octaweb. Secure Dragon's entry into low Earth orbit before separating, leaving Dragon to continue.
I think part of it actually just repeated itself.
Just below the second stage is the first stage, which contains 8 engines arranged around one center engine, all held in place by a structure called the Octaweb. Secure Dragon's entry into low Earth orbit.
Oh wow, this is really bad. I'm scrolling it forward as far as I can. Actually, I'm going to bring it back here, and I'm going to stop it entirely and then restart it. I'm going to refresh it. Okay, let's try loading the player again. Start playing it again. Okay, I'm watching it real carefully to see if it actually gets anywhere close to. Yeah, there's a big problem here. I'm gonna go see if I can bring it up on a web browser and try and capture it there. This is just crazy. Yeah, something is really wrong. I'm watching it on a web browser. Yeah, there's a big problem, and it's on YouTube's side. Yeah, I'm really sorry about all this. This is not working the way I was hoping it might. So I'm going to go take a look at X's feed and see what's going on over there. Yeah, it's in about they're showing it about T-minus 8 minutes and counting. Let me see if I can bring it on another. They're about to hit the T-minus 7-minute mark, which is where they do what is called the engine chill, where they chill the engines down to operating temperature. Yeah, something's really wrong. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to cover this at this point, honestly. It's I should have actually done this from here. So anyway, they should be on engine chill right now. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can bring it up on a web browser source. Hang on a sec here. They've just passed the point where they do engine chill, where they basically flow some liquid oxygen through the turbo pumps just to bring them down to operating temperature. Hang on a sec. I'm gonna bring up a window here. Okay, I think we've got it here. Hang on just a sec here.
For what heats solar wind.
Okay, there we go.
Hotter than the sun's surface. A live Antarctic moss will be studied to understand the effects of cosmic radiation and microgravity on plants. Results could help identify biological systems suitable for use in bioregenerative life support systems.
Okay, there we go. I also had to turn it down in my ears because it was getting a little bit loud. I'm really sorry about this. This was a little bit more trickier than I thought to deal with. So anyway. But basically,
researchers will demonstrate cold welding
this particular vehicle is one of soon to be 2 vehicles capable of what is called downmass, basically taking stuff from the ISS that have been brought up and then taking it down. The other American vehicle, which is Cygnus by Northrop Grumman, is a one-way trip, but it's even its own laboratory as well.
5 minutes and 10 seconds, and everything continues to be go for launch.
And as soon as they hit about, we're almost half a minute away from the Strongback retract. That vertical.
DE is the
what's cold welding? I never knew. I know of friction in the other two.
Next to the rocket, you just heard that call out. That the
doing okay here. Thank you. Over on YouTube. Cold welding basically is where they're getting ready for the Strongback retract. Basically, if you take 2 metals and put them together in a vacuum, they'll weld themselves together. Apparently.
There is that call out for Dragon.
Coming up on Strongback retract, which is also called the transporter erector, because they transport it from a horizontal hangar, and we're now should be getting ready for the Strongback retract. First, that clamp will open up just below the trunk. And shortly thereafter, the entire angle structure, the entire TE/Strongback will angle back about 2 degrees.
From ground systems to the rocket and payload until Falcon 9 switches to internal power. There you can see those clamp
It's popping open right now as we speak.
Right under Dragon.
And shortly thereafter, the entire TE is about to angle back. This is a good view for that. It also contains, like they were saying just now, it contains umbilicals that contain electrical, telemetry, and in certain cases even gaseous and even air conditioning, depending on the. They said mission director is go for launch. There goes the TE or Strongback. It's angling back as we speak. And the next couple of milestones that are not on there is the completion of LOX loading on first and second stage. LOX loading should be completing in just about a few seconds. Excuse me.
There it is, fully reclined from Falcon 9.
And coming the T-minus 3 minutes and counting.
Ready to support. If for some reason we are not able to launch tonight, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow, Tuesday, November 5th.
And Patrick,
Central Time
Space
at
Force Base's 45th Weather Squadron shows that there are about 70% go for launch.
Stages are nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9 will be in startup. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. And just inside T-minus 2 seconds, we'll light the Merlin 1D engines for liftoff.
So startup happens at T-minus 2 minutes. We're about ready to finish filling the first stage with liquid oxygen.
No issues. Currently, the weather is green and the range is ready to support a T0 at 9:29 p.m. Eastern Time. Weather is looking good, and in these last few minutes, Falcon 9 is performing final health checks on the primary communications, avionics.
Here we go. T-minus 2 minutes and counting.
Stage 2, locks load complete.
They just called Stage 2 locks load complete, and in about a minute or so, like they said, startup happens at T-minus 1 minute, which is where the computers aboard Falcon 9 take control over the vehicle and monitor its health, as well as the countdown from computers on the ground. Plus, they will also they're venting all the lines of liquid oxygen. As you see, those big, huge clouds are coming out. Coming up on T-minus 90 seconds and counting. They're closing off the LOX loads, and they're getting ready to... And then also another thing that happens right around the T-minus 1 minute mark, they will start to pressurize all the propellant tanks in advance of liftoff. Or rather, ignition, then liftoff. Coming up on T-minus 1 minute, where startup and propellant tank press takes place. T-minus 1 minute and counting.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
There's the call. The vehicle and the vehicle payload and the Ranger all go for launch. Now we're just waiting on the launch director go for liftoff at T-minus 45 seconds.
SpaceX launch director, go for launch.
There's the LD call. Vehicle range and the weather are all go for launch per the launch director. T-minus 30 seconds and counting.
T-minus 30 seconds.
20, 15, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff of Falcon 9, carrying SpaceX's 31st resupply mission to the International Space Station, and the vehicle has cleared the tower. The vehicle is now pitching downrange to place it above water in the event of an abort scenario. At about the T plus 45 second mark or so, they will start to throttle down all 9 Merlin 1D engines into the bucket, reducing aerodynamic stresses on the vehicle as soon as it enters the area of maximum aerodynamic pressure, or max Q, right around the 55 second mark. And before that, they will hit Mach 1.
Tilt or gimbal the engines, guiding the rocket into what we call a gravity turn. Now, during this turn, the vehicle is flying both up and horizontally away from the launch pad. The rocket
Power telemetry nominal.
typically needs to go.
That's a good thing to hear, that everything is going nominal.
Horizontally in order to
about to hit Mach 1.
avoid getting pulled back down to Earth. You just heard that call out that Falcon 9 is supersonic.
They just called Mach 1.
Throttling the engines back in preparation for max Q.
Well, I guess I was a little early on the max Q side of things. I don't know if they're going to actually do the same flight profile.
Max Q, that's the
they're calling max Q, or the vehicle is experiencing maximum aerodynamic pressure from the atmosphere as the denser portions of the atmosphere as the vehicle passes through it. Now that they've passed through that area, they're now opening the throttles to full thrust.
Stage 2 engine chill.
They're now doing the same thing as they did on the 9 Merlin 1Ds, the sea level ones on the ground before igniting them, bringing the turbo pump on the single Merlin 1D engine, vacuum optimized engine on the second stage in advance of MECO, main engine cutoff, on the first stage, staging, which is the separation of the two stages, and ignition of the MVAC engine on the second stage.
Will separate from one another, and the MVAC engine on the second stage will start.
And that'll happen in about half a minute from now.
Second engine start 1 is when we ignite that single Merlin vacuum engine of the second stage. Shortly after that, the boost back burn will start on the first stage.
Looks like they're going to be landing it possibly on land or a closer drone ship. Standing by for a main engine cutoff or MECO. We have MECO.
There's main engine cutoff.
Main engine cutoff.
And there's the interior of the MVAC on the left from the interstage on the left. And then we have the MVAC on the right. The first stage is now turning around and getting ready to do a boost back burn with 3 engines, engines 1, 5, and 9.
Second stage engine start along with the
we have the first stage engine start. Now it's getting ready to boost back and head back to the Cape. There's some of the stuff from the flames from the first stage. Now we have the first stage on the left-hand side. That's about a 20 to 30 second burn. Sending it back to the Cape.
If you're just joining us, the first stage on your
left
it
does go flippy.
Boost back burn, which is the first of 3 burns designed to take the first stage back down to Earth to our landing zone 1. And the second stage is in its burn, carrying Dragon and the CRS-31 mission towards its...
And we're above the Kármán line on both stages. Had there been a regular one with a regular payload with a fairing on it, it would have already popped open by now. But since this thing has its own... They're calling boost back shutdown. Now we have boost back shutdown. We may not necessarily be able to see it, but you may see when you get more shots from the first stage. You may see little puffs of sort of white cloud puffs. Excuse me. Those are cold gas nitrogen thrusters, which are used to adjust the thruster's attitude as it gets ready to enter the atmosphere for a touchdown, probably at landing zone 1 or LZ1, which is near the which I believe is near SLC 40.
And we are coming up on the entry burn and then second engine cutoff of the second stage. Now the entry burn is slated for a little over 2 minutes from now at the T+6.
It looks like they may actually be subsonic by the time they get there.
On your screen is when the first stage performs it.
It's actually slowed down. And now it's actually starting to speed up.
Of the 9
Vehicles are on a nominal trajectory.
Everything sounds good so far. Vehicles are tracking down where they should be.
And again, for that entry burn, we will relight 3 of the 9 M1D engines, starting with the center E9 engines, followed shortly after by the E1 and E5 engines, which are on either side of it. And this burn will slow the vehicle down as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. And the reason we need to perform
the entry burn will start right at about the 50-kilometer mark above the planet's surface.
Use the first stage. You can follow along on the bottom left and right hand of your screen for the speed and altitude for the first and second stages, respectively. And the second stage.
And it's about to come down below the Kármán line in a moment or two.
Its first burn, and this is what will.
And Kármán line is 100 kilometers above the surface of the planet, which is the internationally recognized boundary to space.
To the International Space Station using its own
the atmosphere extends considerably further than there, but the amount of gases is very negligible. Here we go. We're now below the Kármán line on the booster.
Of the first stage entry burn. This will be about a 20-second burn that slows that first stage down as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere.
Nominal trajectory.
Everything's still on target. Everything's tracking right down where they should be.
We are also currently
getting ready to do the entry burn. They're going to light engine number 9 in the center, followed by engines 1 and 5, which flank it on either side. And that'll be about a 20-second or so burn to slow the vehicle down. Here we go. Entry burn starting momentarily.
Stage 1 entry burn.
We should be getting some visuals. There it is. The entry burn has started.
And this is a 3-engine burn of the first stage, slowing the first stage down as it.
And watch the speed as it slows down by quite a bit.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
And there is that call out for a good entry.
And now you can see the coast down there. You can probably see the the cold gas nitrogen thrusters doing their job, just making fine adjustments to the vehicle's attitude. And those grid-like appendages that you see are grid fins, and those will take a bit more. Those will take a bit more authority the further down into the atmosphere we go. For right now, the only thing they can really use right now are the cold gas nitrogen thrusters, as well as, of course, the Merlin 1Ds that were used to slow the vehicle down.
We should see that landing burn starting in just a few moments.
Yep, they're landing on LZ1. Here we go, about to do the landing burn with just the center engine, number 9 only. There goes, and center engine has ignited. Landing leg deploy momentarily. And the landing legs have deployed. There's a view from the ground, and touchdown. Engine shutdown.
What a beautiful view of that first stage landing, and with that,
and they are in the final stages of the final stages of the second stage,
for Falcon 9
about ready to cut off at SECO 1.
And we are coming up on second engine cutoff 1 here on the second stage.
In some missions, like Starlink missions, they'll have a second burn to circularize the orbit, because initial orbits nearly always are elliptical, where there's one that's a high point, which is the apogee, and the low point, which is closest to the Earth, which is perigee. They're calling SECO 1, and we have SECO 1.
For SECO 1, you can see that MVAC engine slowly cooling off.
And that glow is actually perfectly normal. They actually use two different types of cooling on that. That manifold that you see is directs exhaust from the engine's turbopump into the nozzle, providing film cooling near the top, and the rest of the nozzle glows red hot, doing what is called radiative cooling, basically taking that heat and radiating it out into space.
You can see that MVAC engine continuing to cool down.
And normally when this is a crewed, and I suspect that even though this is not a crew dragon, this is a cargo dragon, there's a view from the vehicle. Looks like they just deployed Dragon from the second stage. Basically, if this is, I suspect they do the exact same flight profile for Cargo Dragon like they do for Crew Dragon. They don't actually do an orbital insertion, an actual orbital launch. They actually do a very long suborbital trajectory. And then once they figure out that everything's okay, they can then use the maneuvering thrusters to circularize the orbit and start to change their altitude, as well as orbital phasing to catch up with the International Space Station, or more accurately, probably have the space station catch up to it.
Falcon 9's first stage on landing zone 1, and that marks the 5th landing for this particular booster. And for those of you following along, this Dragon spacecraft previously supported 4 commercial resupply missions for NASA, including CRS-21.
So they're using the exact same flight profile for the first stage, which is use a bit of energy and boost back to the Cape, and then a longer burn on the second stage to bring it up to orbit.
We recently saw Dragon separation floating away from the second stage as it begins its journey to the International Space Station. We should see the start of nose cone deploy here for Dragon shortly as well.
And the nose cone not only exposes the docking adapter, it also exposes, I believe, 4 more thrusters, which push the vehicle aftward. And there's a
very exciting sight to see. Dragon, you saw, was drifting away from Falcon 9's second stage, confirming spacecraft separation. Let's check in with Joseph as we prepare for nose cone deploy and preview what's in store for the rest of the flight.
Thank you very much, Yome. And we're following along here from Mission Control in Houston, a wonderful launch of Dragon from the historic Launch Pad 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And it's great to see Dragon in orbit and starting its journey on the way to the International Space Station. We're continuing our coverage here in Mission Control Houston and awaiting for the nose cone to deploy. And that is currently about to begin here in just a few moments. The nose cone is at the very tip of the Dragon spacecraft. And once it's deployed, it will expose the 4 forward bulkhead Dracos. These Draco thrusters will execute a series of maneuvers necessary to raise Dragon's orbit and meet up with the International Space Station. And all that will begin in a little over half an hour from now. Now, for Dragon overall, it is carrying well over 3 tons of cargo that is heading to the International Space Station and the Expedition 71 crew, and that includes crew supplies, of course, science investigations, spacewalk equipment, vehicle hardware, and computer resources. And one thing that the Dragon is carrying also is a lot of food for the crew on board. And a common and fun question we get here at NASA is what kinds of delectables are inside Dragon and are on their way to the station for that crew who are anxiously awaiting them. And we did receive note that there is a fresh food kit that includes some fruits and vegetables, much like citrus and apples, some blueberries, sweet onions, and all that on its way inside Dragon right now. There are also 4 zipper crew kits, including crew preferences of coffee. With the holidays arriving, there's 1 bulk overwrap bag, or bob, that features special occasion holiday items like lobster, crab, and quail. In addition to these items, there are also 110, that's right, 110 bulk overwrap bags containing standard food menu items, as well as some crew preference choices along the way. Now, as we take a look at the control rooms that are monitoring Dragon's progress and the International Space Station, there on your left, the International Space Station Flight Control Room, which is where we are here in Mission Control Houston. And then, of course, on the right, the teams in SpaceX monitoring Dragon's journey. And now this journey is going to continue on into the early morning hours and through the phasing burns that will be required to get Dragon to the space station by both teams, and then they'll come together jointly just before docking to work and connect the cargo craft to the orbiting laboratory.
And of course, the big question I have is that freeze-dried?
Deploy of the Dragon craft as we continue to monitor everything here from Mission Control Houston. Now, we mentioned a series of burns required for the spacecraft once it reaches orbit, which it just did. And now in about 30 minutes or so, we will see that first round of what will be 5 burns that will take Dragon onto its next phase of the mission. So as we continue to await the confirmation of nose cone deploy, let's take a closer look at the next several hours and what's in store for the Dragon spacecraft. Now, immediately after Dragon is separated from the Falcon 9, it begins what we call the activation and rendezvous phase of the mission. And during this phase, Dragon is configured for on-orbit operations. And this phase begins after the separation of Dragon from Falcon 9 and ends with the completion of the final co-elliptic burn. Our initial orbit today is 190 kilometers by 210 kilometers. And with those values representing the perigee and apogee of the orbit, or the lowest and highest points over Earth. That means the orbit isn't a perfect circle, but more like a very slight ellipse. Now, over the next several hours after liftoff, Dragon will execute a series of burns, which will gradually raise its orbit to align more closely with the station. And there are 5 major burns, or firings of those.
And there goes the nose cone opening up.
That will bring the spacecraft close to station before we begin those final approach maneuvers. As we take a look inside the nose cone of Dragon as we speak, as the nose cap is opening right in front of us, and continuing to watch the nose cone deploy, again exposing those forward bulkhead thrusters that will begin those 5 phasing burns for the spacecraft, and we will get video.
It also bears noting that it is, yeah, those are the burns basically to alter how the basically to make the that's how they move the space station closer to the Dragon.
Now, and that's performed at the apogee, or the highest point of the initial orbit, and will raise Dragon's perigee, or lowest point, to a higher altitude. And then from there, we'll transfer over to the boost burn, which will happen in the early morning hours. The next burn, based on what our orbital data will show us, is that'll raise Dragon's orbit until its orbit reaches an altitude that is just 10 kilometers lower than the space station. And from there, we'll move into burn number 3, the close co-elliptic burn. And that's followed soon by to place Dragon on an orbit roughly co-elliptic with the International Space Station. And this means that the crew will be about 10 kilometers lower than the space station itself during the entire orbit around the Earth. And then we move into burn number 4, which will be the transfer burn. And this is called the transfer burn, where we will be raising Dragon.
I don't
apogee,
think
again, the
that's a good
highest
question,
point of its
actually.
orbit,
Cannon Fodder
which is
says,
2.5
can Dragon
kilometers
capsules give the station a boost
below
like the
the
shuttle
station.
used to? Actually, no.
As we continue
That
to monitor
duty
the
falls
nose cone
upon
and deploy
Cygnus
Dragon as
from
we
the
speak,
U.S.
about
and Progress from
3/4
Russia.
of the way
Those
there
are the
to
two
transport
vehicles
us
that
into the
actually
burn
do
breakdown of
boost
the fifth
burns.
burn,
Yeah,
the
that's
final
actually a very good
co-elliptic burn.
question. I
And that is
don't
where we
think
will
the
round out
thrusters
everything with that final
on
co-elliptic burn
Dragon
to
are
once
powerful
again
enough to do
maintain
that. They don't
constant
have
orbit beneath
nearly the
station.
power like, say,
This
the
time
ohms
just
thrusters do.
2.5
OMS being,
below.
which is what
From there,
ohms
Dragon will
is
get
what
ready to
ohms
line
is.
itself up,
That stands for
fine-tuning
orbital
its
maneuvering
way
system, which are
before
the two
docking
big
in the early
engines
morning hours of tomorrow, and
that
that'll
that's
approach
that are above the
initiation
three
and make its way
RS-25s
onto waypoint
at
0.
the aft of the vehicle.
As we continue coverage in a successful on-time
Like the RCS
launch
thrusters,
of
it uses the
NASA's
exact
SpaceX
same propellant, which
commercial
is
resupply
monomethyl
service mission
hydrazine
route to the
and
International
dinitrogen
Space
tetroxide
Station.
for fuel and oxidizer, respectively.
As nose to cone deploy.
Sure, no problem. That's one of the reasons
Just
I
a
do this,
moment
is
away
so then
from
people can
locking
ask that
position.
question and say and learn a bit more about how spaceflight works. Because, yeah, they do need to periodically
We
lift
just
the
received
orbit just to make sure that
confirmation the
it's
nose cone has
there. It is.
indeed
Everything is
been
opened up.
deployed, exposing those Draco thrusters that will help the spacecraft climb its way and begin its journey en route to the International Space Station. Now that the nose cone is deployed, Dragon is ready for its phasing burns to the International Space Station with a successful orbital insertion. And I'm now joined by Bill Spech, Operations Integration Manager of the International Space Station. Bill, thank you very much for joining us.
Great to be here.
We've discussed the crucial role of collaboration, teamwork, and dedication in making missions like this possible and ensuring a continuous flow of science, technology, and resources. How have you witnessed this in your team's preparation for this mission and in recent missions?
Well, we're going to go back to the chatting window because I think that's pretty much the extent of the mission that they're going to cover. And let me stop this particular. I'm going to stop the coverage on this. Hang on a minute. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed watching the how a typical flight works on the. In this case, it's the Falcon 9. The only difference between that and other uncrewed launches is that, like, for example, if it's launching a bunch of satellites or even a satellite or even just one like one payload to like, for example, a big major communication satellite or some smaller ones like Starlink satellites or even a whole bunch of little ones like any of the periodic ones that do polar, I think they are, I forget the exact term, but basically they do solar stationary orbits. Basically, in relation to the sun, it is right around, it basically is locked with the, it's not so much a polar orbit, but it's sun synchronous is the word I was trying to remember. But anyway, what happens is that they launch it pretty much almost on a retrograde path, which basically means a little bit beyond 90 degrees against the equator, and a little bit sometimes even right along the Earth's axis. So anyway, those usually are encased in a pair of fairing halves which come together, and just after staging and just above the Kármán, just below or above the Kármán line, they'll pop off the fairing halves. And in the case of SpaceX, like their boosters, as well as, of course, their Dragon, both crew and cargo, those are frequently reused as well. So they'll actually go downrange and fish the fairing halves out of the water. And many of them have flown multiple missions. Some of them have, they may not necessarily be with the same one that they originally flew with. So yeah, they'll do a lot of mixing and matching of those. So yeah, it'll be an interesting thing to talk about there. So SpaceX's, idea of being able to reuse portions of its vehicle is definitely a novel idea, and it has been really gaining traction, especially since 2015, which was their first ever successful touchdown of an orbital grade booster. And of course, Falcon Heavy uses 3 of them, much like the CCB's Common Core boosters on the Delta IV Heavy, which has since made its final flight. So anyway, like I said before, thank you so much for joining me, and let me see whom we might be able to raid over here on Twitch, because I don't have the ability to do that on YouTube just yet. And as always, no problem. Thank you for coming, Red Blue Fire, and as well as everyone else here. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you watching this. And like I said, things are coming real soon. I don't know precisely when, but things are moving in a good direction on the new model front. I don't have any kind of ETA of when that's going to ultimately happen, but more information once I have more information, I will certainly keep everybody abreast. But in the meantime, like I said, let's see whom we can raid into. Let's see. Oh, I know who we could raid just because we can. Thinking I might raid Amano Nene, since I've never raided her before. So, and Production Kawaii, the group that the organization that she is part of, unfortunately, is dissolving at the end of the month. So she'll be an indie afterward. But in any event, let's see if it'll actually allow me to set up a raid. Stand by, because not everybody will be clement to the notion of having a raid. So let me do a raid. Let me try the raid real quick here. Actually, no, this is not what I wanted. Let me try something. Let me try the other one here. There we go. And let's see. As always, I'm going to give you some raid text for those people who don't have subs. And for those who do, here you go. Here's some... let's do a copy. Let's see if it'll allow us to do this. Stand by. Looks like it's allowing me to do it. It may or may not show up on her channel, but we'll see. It looks like we're good. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining me. And as always, Slava Ukraini. And I hope you guys have a great time until the next stream. And until then, I hope you guys take care of yourselves. And if you are in the U.S. and are registered and eligible to vote, please, please, please remember to vote tomorrow. This is probably the most important election you could ever vote in. So please do it. I really, really impress upon you and treat you to do that. So in any event, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time. Talk to you soon. Bye.